Hey everybody, we're going to be doing a Bible study, and I'm also going to be answering some of the questions that the atheists tend to be scratching their head about. For example, atheists will ask, who created God? And also atheists will say, well, if God exists, why is there evil in the world? And we'll talk about that. Another question is they will say, well, why do you believe in creation when we believe that all life began from the earth? So we're going to talk about these things, and we're going to point out each and every atheist error. And speaking of atheism, do you guys remember when I called into the atheist show and I asked them to provide proof and evidence that would show atheism is accurate and correct? Well, the Atheist Experience show still, after years and years, has not done it. And I want to show you the latest video. Go here to shakanow.net and scroll down here, and it's hard to find the complete call that I made into the atheist show because the video keeps getting flagged because the atheists don't want the video to be out there. So I have the complete call into the atheist show at shakanow.net. Now there's lots of atheist TV shows and radio shows, and it's getting to be the like almost like a contest to see who we can find to answer this question, because the Atheist Experience show still is running from it. They will not answer the question. There's atheist radio shows in Florida that won't answer it, and we haven't been able to get any atheist to provide proof and evidence that would show that atheism is accurate and correct. So before I get into the Bible study and we point out the atheist errors, I have a treat for you. Go to shakanow.net, scroll down here, and when you see the mean face here of the angry atheist, listen and watch this video, and you will hear the atheist dodging and evading the question. Now, there's also some videos out there like this one here where this lady in the audience is asking the atheist for proof and evidence, and the atheist dodges and weaves. You want to listen to the Atheist Experience show, they'll never answer the question, what proof and evidence can you provide that proves atheism is accurate and correct? And then right here, this video is very rare, it's hard to find. Christopher Hitchens admits in this video that only Jesus Christ could say, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And so that's amazing. Totally unedited video. You can listen to that. But definitely listen to my call into the atheist radio show and listen to all the videos. There's videos all over YouTube where people are calling into the Atheist Experience show asking them, what proof and evidence can you provide that proves atheism is accurate and correct? And they'll never answer it. In this call here to this show, like in this video right here where it says tenets of atheism, they actually start talking, these atheist hosts, they start talking about ice cream and unicorn. So it's really funny. So notice it says, let's get the atheist shows to answer the question. Just once would be nice. So this is the entire call. You'll hear little snippets on YouTube that are only about a minute or two long, but here's one that hasn't been flagged. It's 15 minutes and 14 seconds. It's my entire call into the atheist show. And then at the end of this video, there's you'll see some atheists on there admitting that the atheist totally got destroyed on the show and they totally evaded the question. And an actual real atheist on there admitting it. Then watch this video here where the lady asked the atheist to provide proof and evidence, that would show atheism is accurate and correct, and she's pointing out that he doesn't have any. My Santa Syndrome video, which is really good. And then this is an epic video. You got to check this out. It's called Atheist. Oh, and don't forget to see Hitchens talking here, very respectful about Jesus Christ, which is a very good video. I like Hitchens when he was talking like this here. How do you see it? Go to shakanow.net. We'll have all the videos there. Now, let's get to these questions. A lot of atheists will say, well, who created God? And I think if they would just crack open the Bible, you don't even have to read the whole Bible, read some of it, you would realize that for us Christians to worship a God that is created is actually sinful. The Bible's very clear about that. And it talks about how the pagans would create their own gods and things like that. And we're not to worship gods that are created. So go with me now to 1 Timothy 1:17. Notice what it says. 1 Timothy 1:17. Now to the King eternal, immortal, invisible, to God, who alone is wise, be honor and glory forever and ever. So even if any of our atheist friends would take the time just to, maybe read the Bible, you would see that God is eternal. He's not mortal. He's not physical. He's eternal. And what's awesome is he plants himself into the tintly flesh of man in this person, Jesus Christ. But notice he's eternal. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's say 30. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right one. 33. Check this out. Right here, write this down, Deuteronomy 33:27. Notice, the eternal God is your refuge. Notice, he's not created. So I think this all started with that dodo bird Richard Dawkins saying, well, who created gold? And, in order for everything to exist in the universe, when you really think about it, there had to be something that was eternal. Otherwise, everything would just collapse. You can't have an infinite regress. So any person with just common sense would realize there has to be something that always existed in order for all of this to exist, you and I and everything. The eternal God is your refuge. So that whole question of who created God is really shows that the atheists have not cracked open the Bible, because no one claims that God is created. Otherwise, by default, it wouldn't be God. And also, in the Christian faith, it's sinful to worship gods that are created. So that answers that. If something was created, then it's not God. Notice God is eternal. And so let's go to, so that answers the who created God part. Let's go to where atheists will say, well, the atheists will say they're not creationist. They believe that life began from the earth and, water. Well, atheists are creationist, and I'm going to show you why. Let's go to Genesis. Check this out. You atheists that are reading this, you're actually creationist by your own admission. Go to Genesis 1:20 with me. Let's see what it said. Because the atheists believe that out of the waters and out of the earth, life was formed, right? Look what it says in Genesis 1:20. Then God said, let the waters abound with abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens. Now, atheists will try to convince us, and no one's convinced by it. I mean, the atheist population is actually decreasing now. It's not increasing. And Christianity is exploding in places like Africa and China. I mean, and the reason why is it makes more sense than atheism. What the atheists are trying to convince us to believe is that magically out of the waters, all by themselves, these creatures just appeared, and the waters just magically were there. So out of nothing, these things were created. That's what the atheists are trying to convince us, that the water was like magic water and it created these things, right? They don't mind that things are created from the water, but they don't like the idea of this right here. They want to take God out of the equation. So evidently, to be an atheist, you have to believe in magic water and all this other stuff that's going to create these creatures. But let's go to Genesis 1:24. A lot of atheists will say, well, I believe that out of the earth these things came forth. Well, you're a creationist. You're a creationist because this is what it says. Then God said, let the earth bring forth. Notice, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind. So atheists really are just creationists, except for this part. That's the part right here that they don't like, the God part. They want us to believe that just by magic, the earth brought forth the living creature. That's what they want us to believe. When anyone would agree that it's a lot easier to understand, it makes more common sense that God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind. Do a search on my channel for IQ test and take that IQ test and you'll see what I mean. So here you have Genesis 1:11, Genesis 1:20. Genesis 1:11. I want to read this to you also. Notice, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, the fruit tree, etc. Notice that. The atheist agrees that the earth did this. The atheist agrees that the waters did this. The atheist agrees that out of the earth these creatures were brought forth. The atheist is a partial creationist. They really are. Just that one little three-letter word here, God. They don't like that. What they want us to believe is even more difficult to believe. They want us to believe by faith that the waters just did it all on their own. And the earth just did it all on its own. And that's how everything started. That's how they want us, to believe it. Another problem that atheists have is, most atheists will say they believe in the Big Bang. Well, even on their own arguments, there were no natural materials prior to that Big Bang. So you have to believe, if you're an atheist, you have to believe that nothing created everything, which is silly. It doesn't make sense. Out of nothing, nothing comes. Nothing is the absence of anything. And that's worse than magic. At least with magic, you have the magician and the hat and the rabbit. The atheist has a tough sell. This is why atheism is now shrinking worldwide as a whole, because they have to convince the rational world, that out of nothing, everything just appeared magically. So that's why, no one that is rational buys into that. That's why Christianity is exploding and growing, why atheism is really suffering right now in the year 2014. All right, let's go to the next question. Atheists will say, well, if God exists, why is there evil in the world? And I love when atheists say that, because when they say that, they're like the man on the tree limb sawing off the limb while he's sitting on it. It's like the Wile E. Coyote syndrome, They don't understand that when they're saying, why is there evil in the world, they're admitting that there are objective moral values. But if we were all just blobs of slime, atheist flesh blobs, like some people say, if we were all just flesh blobs, there would be no good or evil. We would all just be animals, and there's no such thing as good or evil. But when an atheist says that, why is there evil in the world, they're basically realizing that there are objective moral values, rights and wrongs. And there wouldn't be, if atheism was true, we wouldn't have any good or evil or right or wrongs or anything like that, because everyone's just a bunch of cells with skin and bones, and there is no right or wrong. But let's get more into this Bible study, on the Bible study side of it, and look at this. Why is there evil in the world? Why doesn't God just end it all and judge the world and you know, fix the problems that are within the world where people don't like the evil within the world. And even the atheist admits that there is real good and real evil in the world. Notice it says here, Matthew 13, on the same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the sea, and great multitudes were gathered together to him, so that he got into a boat and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. Then he spoke many things to them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. Some seeds fell on stony places where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up because they had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And what he's doing here is he is actually giving a message. It's almost like a subliminal message, like there's a little secret message in this, a parable, if you will. And then he says, and some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. But the others fell on good ground and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. And then he says this phrase, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And that would be like in our times here, 2014, that would be like someone saying, look, pay attention to this part. This is very important. That's sort of like what he's saying here. Look, if you have ears, use them. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So this is important. The disciples said, why do you speak to them in parables? Like, why are you talking like this with these stories, these examples? And he answered to them, and this is really interesting, because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. Interesting. It's almost like Jesus, and this is just my opinion, but it's almost like he's saying it to filter out the people that aren't really interested in learning, or they're not really thirsting and hungering for truth. Like if you're in your subconscious mind, you're not really interested. You just kind of listen to, okay. But if you're really focusing, you can get the message what he's saying here. So he then says to them, look, for whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see. Interesting. He's showing it to them, they won't see it. And hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, and now don't worry guys, I'm going to get to what the parable means, and let's see if you can understand it. I'm sure you can. But before he deciphers what this meant here, he says, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled in them, which says, hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will not perceive, for the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand. Notice, and understand. It's like what Jesus is saying is, if we understand him, we understand what he's saying, that's wisdom. To reject it and to not understand it is not wisdom. It's honorable, and it's worthy of us to understand it. And he says, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it. Therefore hear the parable of the sower. Now he's going to decipher this here. It's interesting. I would say, in my opinion, again, this is one of the most important passages in the Bible, because it's a passage where you, for example, and we could figure out where we're at with our walk with the Lord by going through this. Go through this with me. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, they're not focusing, they're not paying attention. Notice, Then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. And it's interesting that Jesus is referring to a real wicked one. He's saying there is a wicked one. He clearly talks about Satan as a real person. He says the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is he who received the seed by the wayside. Remember up above here when he was saying that some of the seed falls by the wayside. But he who received the seed on stony places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy, yet he has no root in himself. So more like an emotional person. They're into the emotion of it and they love the good news of the gospel, but they're just very emotional, but they're not rooted and grounded in God's word. But notice, endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. So he's okay as long as nothing rocks his boat, you see. Now there's another person. He says, now he who receives seed among the thorns, what do the thorns represent? Is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. And then he ends it with this, and this is about you, we would hope. But he who received seed on the good ground is he who hears the word. Notice, they hear it first, and they understand it, and then they bear fruit, and produces some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Well, remember we talked about one of the atheist questions, why is there evil in the world? Jesus touches on this a bit here. And throughout the whole Bible it talks about this coming day of judgment. It says, another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. Notice that. What does that mean? He sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. Who did that? The enemy. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said to him, sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, an enemy has done this. The servant said to him, do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, and here it is, why is there evil in the world? Why doesn't God just come back and judge like this second? He says, no, don't gather them up just yet, notice. Lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together, evil and good, side by side, until the harvest. And at the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, first gather the tares and bind them in bundles. Notice what happens with the tares, to burn them. But gather the wheat into my barn. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds. But when it is grown, it is greater than the herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. Another parable he spoke to them, the kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till it was all leavened. All of these things Jesus spoke to the multitude in parables, and without a parable he did not speak to them. Now he even explains the tares and the wheat, what I just read. Check this out. The disciples come up to him and said, hey, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said to them, he who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. He's referring to himself. The field is what? The world. The good seeds are the sons of the kingdom. That's you and I. But the tares are the sons of the wicked one. Do you know if you're not in Jesus Christ, by default, we're sons of the wicked one? If you're a son of the wicked one, then you're not sons of the kingdom. There's just those choices. There's no other choice. You have those two choices, notice. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. Again, Jesus referring to a real, actual devil. The harvest is what? The end of the age. And the reapers, remember he says, get them and put them in, put the tares in the burn them, put them in the, well, let's go to the actual thing right here. It says, burn them, bind them and burn them. So notice this is sweet, gentle, meek, loving Jesus saying this. He says, and the reapers are the angels. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out his kingdom all things that offend, and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be this. Now listen, guys, this is unpopular, I know, in our politically correct world, but we want to be JC correct, not PC correct. This is JC speaking. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Here it is again. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So we're either sons of the kingdom or we're sons of the wicked one. I want to make sure I do what Scripture says, work out my salvation with fear and trembling. I want to go ahead and be the son of the kingdom. Now, here's what you got to do, okay? Go to shakanal.net. I promise you're going to laugh at this when you see this. And go down here to where it says, I didn't make this video, but someone made it, and it's so good in it, and I don't mind they use my actual call into the radio show in their video. You know how a lot of people are calling the Atheist Experience Show, and they can't get them to answer the question, what proof and evidence can you provide that proves atheism is accurate and correct? So it's getting to be like a little contest where a lot of people now are calling atheist shows and they're asking them to answer that question, and you want to record it when you ask them this and upload it to YouTube. This video here has, when you go here, you'll see it has tons of views to it. This one here too, where the lady asked the atheist, they're in the middle of a debate, and she asked the atheist, what evidence do you have that shows atheism is actually correct? You definitely want to listen to this. This is a very rare video. It's 15 minutes long because it usually gets flagged because the atheists do not want you to hear this. Basically what happens is, in a nutshell, the atheists kind of freak out when I ask them what proof and evidence can you give me that would prove atheism is true. And I'm not kidding you, you'll hear it. They start talking about ice cream and unicorns. I mean, you don't think, I wasn't thinking for a moment that I could get through the whole call without them talking about unicorns. And of course, Santa syndrome came up during the call too. But it's a real funny call. Go ahead and check it out. The whole site has now been updated at shakanal.net. You'll see the guy here. And remember the two tenets of atheism: there is no God and they hate him. I've never seen so many people talk about God and how he doesn't exist than we do in the world of atheism. Another funny video here, what is Santa syndrome? And then this video here is one of my favorites. This is when Christopher Hitchens was softening up a bit, towards his later years, and he actually speaks honorably about Jesus Christ, and he admits that only Jesus Christ could say, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." I'll see you guys at shakanal.net. God bless you. I love you. Have a great week.